essentially. So how do you deal with a case when you get one? How do you take it apart? So Harvard is the place for case studies, so you can see YouTube clips. So I think what we normally do, we read very quickly, we look at the title for clues, read the headings, maybe look at the diagrams, maybe look at the tables, look at the appendices. Then try and see what, again, it's a case of. So what is the learning? What do we want to learn? And in our case, what do we want to learn about SMEs from your case that we can put in the handbook that we can use for future cases? And there may be obvious issues, but there may be things happening underneath as well, less obvious. And at the end of the day, you as students need to make judgments and recommendations. So what are you going to advise your CEOs of your companies that they might be able to do better? And how are you going to argue why? And finally, what are the limitations of your consultancy that you're giving these organizations? And there is really no right answer in these cases. The quality of your answer is about your arguments. So really you're making decisions in conditions of uncertainty. You don't know what the future is going to be, so you have to, with confidence, collect the data you already have. And I think it's very important to be empathetic. So we have the CEO of Kirkwood Hospice visiting and talking. So what is it like? I'm sure in many of these jobs it's not very glamorous when you're inside. It's pretty tough in an SME. So what would you do if you were in an HR director's job? So I think visuals are quite useful. For example, Coca-Cola, there's plenty of examples in infographics. It's quite nice to give timelines and histories and how things have changed visually. So maybe you could consider doing this for your case study at some point. And just like the Bayeux Tapestry, you know, what happens over the kings and the history is quite important, I think, to convey. And we already saw this morning a pestle, so clearly things like a SWOT analysis you might like to do. And I just got back from Hong Kong yesterday, and we were using, this was in the question, using the Socratic method. How do you develop good questions to question people's assumptions? Because people often in small businesses get stuck, or in any business, stuck with their ideas. And dialogue and conversation is very important. So the Socratic method is a way of questioning. And it starts off with an argument. So you might have an argument, you know, 40 people in Kayani in this business is too few. We need to create more. And then you look at the opposite argument. So maybe we don't. Maybe we just need to make more of the 40 people we have in this company. So you agree with the argument and then you disagree with the argument. And try and look at it from different angles. Okay? So one thing we haven't discussed this morning is HR good? Is HR doing good? Or is it actually doing bad? Because some people don't take HR very seriously. And the key argument is, how can HR add value? HR should be telling the CEO what to do. But the problem in many organizations is HR waits for the CEO to tell them what to do. So maybe one of your recommendations should be to make your HR person more effective. Okay? So in our case we have, I think some of these issues you've highlighted this morning. It's a case we're writing an article together. For ours, they want expansion. So they want to grow a business that is all about dying. And ironically, death is a good business to be in our countries in the West, yeah? Because we're all living longer and getting more illnesses kind of longer. So end of life, living with unhealthy people. So if you go to Japan, they all talk about people over 75 living healthy lives. So this business of helping people die slowly is quite an important business. And these are the kinds of issues that are being raised. Maybe in future it will merge with other hospices. And one of the key words that came out of the hospice was volunteering. So in fact, we're talking about a case of volunteers, people who aren't paid. How do you motivate those? So actually being contradictory is quite important in the case. Talk about opposites and tensions. So how do you HR manage people who aren't paid? It's quite an interesting conundrum. So this is the CEO. He came to talk to our students a few weeks ago. And when I went to visit them, that was their key issue. How do you manage people who don't get paid? So we're trying to frame this theoretically. You do need to find some models. And Larry Griner's article in Harvard Business Review is one of the most cited ever, looking at how organizations grow. So I think we're trying to map and use this in an HR context. So in the hospice, they had a crisis really of professionalism. So the hospice was founded by people in Huddersfield. The local community founded the hospice. They've got a good CEO now, so they've dealt with their crisis of leadership. But now you've got a crisis of how to professionalise HR. And we're watching that as it happens. So what I'd like you to do now is to use some of those plot lines and just visually think of what's happening in your own cases. Okay? And before I do that, I just want to kind of an acronym. It's called CASED. Okay? So I tell my students it's very important to use theory. Okay, so this morning we didn't have a lot of theory. You talked about motivation. So who are the main writers on theory? Okay? The other one is argue. You should argue, not just describe. Okay? So discuss, debate, what's good, what's bad, what you could do differently. The third one is tell a story. That's what I was saying just now. Evidence, where do you get that data? So we had very nice this morning statistics, lots of nice graphs. And finally, diagrams, so pictures, like the Coke history. So concepts, argue, story, evidence, and diagrams. If you can get that into your case, just kind of beefing it up your case when you write them up, that's what we're kind of looking for from our side of things. Okay, so I know we're running out of time a little bit. Can you just have a quick jot down who's in your story, what's happening, when, where, why, how. Just jot down something very quickly. And if it were a film, okay, if you were making your case into a movie and wanted to sell tickets, box office tickets, can you think of a nice, interesting title for your film?